2019.
When it was a territory.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. I'm Saeed Khan, and it looks like we are joined this week by our OG group, which is, we always, of course, appreciate those who joined the show, but it looks like we've got the original gang here. It must be Ramadan. That's the only explanation I've got to this. Thank you, Jill, for a good morning to Detroit and to all of us and all of you out there. We are joined with two of the three loyally Troika, Bill Seikaly and Joel Sklar, who is enjoying his coffee in strict violation of Ramadan. Oh, and now, of course, we're joined by the trio. The trio is now complete. We have attorney Steve Fishman. We have labor and community activist Barb Ingalls. We have, and I'll let her explain it. Lucky we're on Zoom and not in the studio, because God knows the guys would have been incriminated here. We have veteran journalist Nancy Derringer, and of course we have co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel. So, Mr. Zelensky came to Washington, more specifically to the Oval Office, and things didn't exactly go well. Mr. Zelensky was the target of at least a certain level of triangulation by Vice President J.D. Vance, as well as President Donald Trump, as well as a reporter who was questioning his sartorial splendor of not dressing in a suit in the Oval Office, despite the fact that, of course, now ubiquitous member of the Oval Office, Elon Musk, tends to be in there with a t-shirt and a blazer. It seems as though Mr. Zelensky was then ordered out of the White House. He left without signing the mineral deal, which was on the table, and no further conversation regarding peace negotiations with the conflict with Russia. But a lot has changed since that happened last Friday. It seems now that Zelensky is walking things slightly back. He's saying that, well, maybe things went a little bit too far. I'm coming for the deal, and I'm going to meet President Trump's team in that new Geneva of the world for negotiations of Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to go ahead and see what can be done to end the conflict in the Black Sea region. What can we make of the spectacle that was this meeting? Yes,
it's an
Bill.
ambush.
I have a question before. I have one additional question. Does anybody believe it wasn't a setup? That wasn't pre-planned?
Not I.
Well, I guess
the most amazing
the corollary to the question is, Bill, is if that's so, do you think that Zelensky was in on it?
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Okay.
No. I think that this was, Trump wanting to make the point, and I think he used Vance. I don't think any vice president would have ever done anything like that without permission from the president in advance, and especially
knows what he's told.
Yeah, and I think this was just a setup, and I think it was despicable. I found it to be embarrassing. Look, I've been in very, very difficult negotiations. I know how tough and mean negotiations can be. I also know you don't do that publicly. And I thought Zelensky might have been able to handle a little bit better, though I think he was probably just taken off guard. But I think he came off as the hero. I was embarrassed.
Yeah. Allan.
I think Vance was explaining maybe on Fox News or something where he said at some point where maybe we should take this in, the back room or whatever. And Trump was like, no, let's just stay here. I mean, it was all for show. And some people say Zelensky didn't read the room, but I say Zelensky had to stand up. I mean, he was called a dictator before. He was blamed for the war, starting the war. I think he had to stand up. There are people who say, Ukraine provoked. Russia by wanting to join NATO or stuff, but it's like, who gives a shit, man? It's like, yeah. So anyway.
All right, Joel.
I'm looking at my phone. I think it's an embarrassment, number one. I think it's shameless, number two. And if this is how he negotiates, he is the worst negotiator I've ever seen in my life. He's, saying that I have the cards, you have no cards. If you have our cards, then you have cards. Now you have no cards. And Zelensky's like, these are people's lives. And just it was Trump being the worst negotiator ever. It was the vice president being a lackey.
Robin. Didn't you get like Robin, the TV version of Robin from Batman and Robin?
That Burt Ward?
Yeah, Burt Ward.
First cop. I think they were playing that game.
And then Marco Rubio.
Well, we're going to get to him. That's what I was one of my schmucks I was going to damn you.
Holy baby boom reference, Nancy. Steve.
To begin with, people who criticize Zelensky for the way in which he said things, whatever, it might be nice for them to remember this is his third language.
Right.
We've got Americans who can barely speak English, let alone Spanish, Italian, Hebrew, or whatever. He's in there in his third language. He's on television, and he's ambushed not just by Trump and his sidekick Tanto. He's ambushed by the guy who's supposed to be a journalist, who's no journalist. He was just another guy part of the ambush. Yeah. So when they talk about, when people have the nerve to say, when I listen to this, well, he could have handled it differently. Yeah, he could have got up and punched him in the fucking face. What he could have done.
I would have preferred that.
But I mean, in all seriousness, you're asking a guy. This is a guy who this is his third language. He's not. Then you're starting to talk about negotiating and this and that and the other. I'd like to see any of these Americans go anywhere and have to speak anything other than their own shitty English and see how they're going to do when they're negotiating and when they're trying to respond to somebody. So,
hey, Allan, if you're going to go ahead and chime in, you got to make a reference that Vance is like Kato from the Green Hornet, because we're deputizing him seriously here.
Robin wasn't cool.
He's also if those of you who are fans of the Christmas Story remember Scott Farkas and his little toady Grover Dill, the little newsboy cat. He's Grover Dill. Okay, that's
Scott.
Nancy, I want you on my trivia team. That is wow.
Look that up out there. That was really.
Allan.
I was going to say, there's a quote from somebody who says, "Don't make fun of somebody who has an accent. That means they speak another language."
Yes, exactly.
And I think as Steve is right. I mean, just to go to the absurdity of Trump declaring English the official language of America, like, thank goodness, what were we going to do if that didn't happen? We were going to have to learn another language or something.
So Allan, when you learned the language of west of the Appalachians, I mean, how did that go? Because that East Coast accent of yours, man.
It's so crazy. It's just so.
But I mean, but go ahead, Barb.
I was going to say, and then so this happens, and it's horrible, and it's terrible, and it's clear that Putin's in charge of this, and then they go to kick all of the Ukrainian refugees out of the United States of America. And I tell you, this is the most terrifying thing of all. I have a friend who got his family over, and they're hysterical. They don't know what to do. They have a 17-year-old son that they don't want to take him back. And they don't care. The thing that's overwhelming, they don't care. People, there's a sizable Ukrainian community in Warren and in places like that. And these people are like losing their shit. First, they take away any kind of health care for them. And these are, again, these are refugees. These are, and it just proves that it's not just brown people that they hate. I don't know if we should feel better about that, but it's mind-boggling. The repercussions from this are just even as bad as everything that happened. And there's poor Zelensky. And he looked good in that damn outfit, for Pete's sakes.
He did.
Barb, could we please agree to not use the expression "the worst of it is"? Because every time I use that expression in connection with Trump, it
There's
can't
no
get any
bottom.
crazier. It gets crazier.
And by the way,
Yeah.
Barb, I mean, as somebody of, in the taupe range, I'm not okay with the fact that they've added to non-browns being treated this way. So
It's not. Yeah, it's really scant. It's scant comfort. Yes, yes, Trump is a Russian asset.
Justice for Joel's dog. He did not.
Yes.
Whatever happened to him, he did not deserve to be thrown out in the backyard or wherever.
Well,
He went on the deck. He's lounging at Shay's lounge. He's on his phone. He's texting. That's what
it's Shay's. It's as
Right.
Nancy
Right.
will tell you. As Nancy will tell you when she has two good eyes, it's Shay's long. So,
My bad.
Exactly.
My bad.
well, I mean, but
Drinking
look,
warm beer on the Shays Lounge.
is that the song by Wet Leg?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great song. Well, here's the thing. I mean, look at the petulance that's going on. The Trump administration has now told the UK that it will not share intelligence on Ukraine. So the vice grip seems to be increasing as Europe is trying to take more and more responsibility of this. And then added to that, I suppose it's important to mention that the President Trump has said that maybe he'll pull the U.S. out of NATO, and maybe the Europeans should go ahead and take charge. Joel.
Well, but the problem is we're no longer part of the intelligence, a part of the Five Eyes. We're not getting intelligence from our allies or who are, I guess, our former allies. We are less safe every single day because of Trump. And this is one reason why. We're not going to know things that we need to know because we're not considered trustworthy with the information. And Europe rightly believes we will be feeding Putin whatever we receive because clearly Putin and maybe to a degree Musk are running the country. It's how I see it. Everything is being done to satisfy him. So again, there's going to be repercussions, just like Barb said, real people are going to suffer immeasurably. And
but Joel,
collectively.
Joel, I think, though, I must respectfully disagree. I think the American public will hear what it needs through Truth Social and what the president had to say in front of Congress.
Sadly, most will, 50% will believe it, right? So, I mean, that's what we're learning. He's Biden, it's, the Marxists, it's now the globalists, which God knows what that really means. I mean, so this is the problem with Trump. These are the consequences that are going to happen, that are going to flow, that we don't know yet what's coming, but we know it is bad.
Yeah.
Alan.
As somebody was mentioning, are we convinced Trump is a Russian asset yet? Or are we still dancing around it? And, it doesn't matter.
Krasnov.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what we call him. I mean, look, he's, Russia's thrilled. I mean, they've cut off Ukraine. They've cut off the intelligence, the weaponry. They're talking about pulling out of NATO. It's everything. If I were Putin and I wanted to weaken or overthrow America, I would put Trump in there and say, have at it, help us out. I mean, he's trampling the Constitution. He's doing everything that Russia wants. And Russia is probably always bothered that, U.S. is always bragging about their democracy and how superior it is. And they're trying to show your democracy is shit. Mm-hmm. And Trump has proven that.
Well, Alan, I think this might be catching on you and Joel regarding whether he's an asset, because I understand that the word Krasnov is now the most used safe word on swinger cruises heading out from Miami and Fort Lauderdale. So if that's just any kind of evidence of the connection, so be it. Barb.
No, I'm just trying not to make
quacks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's a duck.
Yeah.
I mean,
it doesn't matter whether or not it says
if he was an asset,
says, I am not a duck.
What would you want an asset to do if you were president? Everything Trump's doing.
Yeah,
so
precisely.
I think the food is the eating, and it tastes terrible.
Yeah.
Well, and as I said, I mean, Trump did address Congress. It was not technically a State of the Union address because he is in his first year of his term. But nonetheless, it still took on a certain raucousness, which has become emblematic of these kinds of addresses before Congress. And Alan, I believe you have a video.
We have videos. These are called the Two Greens.
Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat.
I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means Congress doesn't vote. Lincoln.
Here we have one more, but it's interesting, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene can scream liar and yell shit, and the Republicans are like, oh, that's all right.
Yeah, that's just
Here's the other one.
At the Democrats in front of me, and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do.
Is this a presidential address or a voicemail from my mother? Hello? Yes, it's me, the mother who birthed you, raised you, fed you, and clothed you.
Would it have been appropriate for the Democrats?
That's wrong, by the way. He was absolutely wrong about that. Had he resigned that night, they would have stood up and applauded. Yeah. I guarantee it.
Would it have been more appropriate for the Democrats to yell Barabbas?
Can I ask a question?
Just asking. Okay.
While I was in New Orleans getting a black eye, we of course did not take time to watch this thing.
By the way, Nancy, you know what? If you do that again, I have a feeling it really matches Steve's shirt.
Well, I think it was really vivid, like Mardi Gras colors, and now it's getting more of that southwestern sunset look to it as it heals. But anyway, we did not watch, and in fact, we hollered at the bartender until he changed the channel of the bar or the TV to a basketball game. But did he really, the president of the United States, really call Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas from the podium?
Yes.
That guy, I mean, every single one of those Democrats should have been up there screaming and shaking their cane at him. I mean, all right, go ahead. Go ahead, Steve. Take it away.
I think I don't know, we don't miss it because we know it, but we forget this is not serious politics anymore. This is television stuff. When he said that at the end of the Zelensky meeting, you can't call it a meeting. Boy, this is terrific television. This is what we're living in. And this is what a lot of the public likes to see. All this screaming and yelling from, I don't care if it's the Democrats or the Republicans. Sit your ass down, let the person finish their speech, and then your person's going to talk. Alyssa talks afterward, and that's the way it's supposed to be. The Republicans are the ones who started this crazy shit back with You Lie with Obama. But this is all television. It's not what we grew up with. It's not what we're used to. And this is what these young people are. This is what they think life is all about.
Well, and this is
absolutely right. And we're not, here's the bigger problem, in my opinion, we're not going to get the genie back in the bottle.
That's exactly
We're not going to get back to civility.
No, it's gone now. It really is.
We're going to become like the House of Commons.
No, the House of Commons.
How dare you?
God, that exactly. How dare you? It's going to be like Italy.
Alan, will you just tell the right honorable gentleman he's wrong?
It's going to be like Italy, where they elected a porn star to the whatever their parliament is, and and nobody takes anything seriously. And
I thought they were imitating us.
In a lot of ways.
Given the fact that the South Korean parliament on a fairly routine basis has fistfights, and in the Serbian parliament this week the opposition let off smoke bombs.
Are you saying we should be more like Serbia and South Korea?
I'm wondering if we're even on the medal podium, Nancy.
Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time for the United States is clearly not fit to be world leaders anymore. We're really not, and maybe this is going to be a big relief for us, because being the leaders of the free world is clearly too much for us. Mm-hmm. We would rather just cut education. We would rather make people stupid, fill their heads with TV, put Linda McMahon in charge of the Department of Education just to tear it down. There's like a big sigh of relief. Now we can just be our own stupid redneck selves without any pretense of anything else.
Well, if Trump is Mike TV and Taft was Augustus Gloop, I guess we still have a couple more of the Willy Wonka kids to go through as president. So
Melania is Violet. What's her face?
Beauregard.
Yeah.
She keeps popping up in my Facebook, and it won't let me block her. I'm really not kidding. It's just out of the blue.
There's a lot of weird right-wing stuff that's popping up unasked for in my meta feeds, and I'm convinced this is just part of Zuckerman cringing. And speaking of Burt Ward and Grover Dill.
You guys get it wrong. Didn't you listen to the speech? In the speech, I got to hear someplace, Trump said, free speech is back. He wrote an executive order. Eliminating all restrictions on free speech, and we're not going to be woke anymore. That's all that's going on. I mean, I'm
really fucking relieved.
Bill, is this the same executive order that says that anybody who is found to have participated in an illegal protest in a school, college, or university, that said institution will have its funding cut, and that anybody who's involved in a quote-unquote pro-Hamas protest, and if they're not a U.S. citizen, will be deported?
Listen, I want to make something real clear. I now understand how you spelled hypocrisy. It's TRUMP.
Okay. Right.
I mean, the hypocrisy of him talking about how they have eliminated all the restrictions on free speech, while they throw Al Green out, while they grab signs from the Democrats and throw them away. It is offensive. What a hypocrite they have become. Trump and his supporters are the ultimate hypocrites, and
Bill
can't believe anything they say.
I'm getting some messages from middle school aged South Asian kids who say your spelling is actually wrong. So if you've ever watched the National Spelling Bee, hypocrisy.
Can I just say though that Bill complaining about hypocrisy at this point in the degeneration of this country is like complaining that somebody used the wrong fork, the fifth fork instead of the dessert fork. I mean, it's like hypocrisy. That ship sailed so long ago. We don't even. we
don't have that anymore.
I mean,
Nancy,
it's not Trump being. I want to make look, Nancy. I have a lot of respect for Nancy. I understand what she's saying.
Why?
It's not. Why would I have respect for you?
No, go ahead. I'm just kidding.
It's not Trump's hypocrisy that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact his supporters and how they buy into it and about how they believe this nonsense. I mean, he has given free speech back to people who want to use the Nazi salute. He has given free speech back to people who want to use the N-word. He has made it okay to make fun of transgender people and gay people. That's what he wants to support in terms of free speech. At the same time, he wants to mess with the Kennedy Center and go after, go after anybody who forms there who doesn't fit his definition. He wants to do everything Saeed talked about, but it's not him. He's an asshole. I don't defend anything he does, and I don't have any expectations for him. It's the people who support him and allow this hypocrisy to continue to say, well, I want free speech for me, but not for you.
Well,
and I want to call that out every chance I get.
The other day I was thinking about January 6th, and I thought, the guys, I assume they were guys, who shit in the corridors of the U.S. Capitol, it was a lesson that some people seem to take, because what Trump is doing now is shitting all over official Washington. The Kennedy Center. Why would he care about the Kennedy Center? Because he got his widow feelings hurt because, some Hollywood people didn't want to perform for him sitting in the balcony like the president always does. And so he just boycotted it for 4 years. Well, now he's back. He's not going to boycott it anymore. He's going to put the fucking January 6th choir up there with Lee Greenwood singing, backup for him, and he's going to put some hot fucking garbage in the hallowed halls of the Kennedy Center. He's shitting in the Kennedy Center. That's all it is. So
Okay. Steve.
Sorry.
Okay, so we've done a lot of complaining and griping. So
Yes.
here's what I think needs to be discussed, because complaining and griping isn't going to do us any good. What do you guys think is going to turn any of these people around? Because I have some opinions on that, but I want to hear you guys too. Not talking about the hardcore MAGAs, that 25, 30%, whoever they are, but what about the rest of them? People who voted for the guy, well, he's not so bad. All the things you've been saying. What's going to turn them around?
I think when it starts hitting them in their pocketbooks and hard, hitting them
Social
hard. In their
Security, Medicare, Medicaid.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But I wouldn't bet too much on that. Because who knows? These people seem completely nuts. But I want to hear what you have to say, though, Steve. But
before Steve, I just want to say that he's created so much chaos that we can't even focus anymore on what it's like. It all ends on the tariffs, on the immigration, on the layoffs and stuff like that. He's creating a chaos where we're going to get used to that, and we're just going to be exhausted from it. And he's hoping we get exhausted from it and just give up on pushing back. The other thing is, I wish Nancy, I want to get you a T-shirt that says, "I need a divorce lawyer," and I want you to walk around.
Nancy, blink if you need help.
Well, Nancy, I was going to get you a "Not Without My Daughter" one, but too soon.
I've said this before. I think when kids get sick, when their children get ill, when it impacts those they love the most, at that point, maybe there'll be some rethought and some introspection and some analysis that maybe I've been duped. Maybe vaccines are good. Again, there was a child that died 2 weeks ago for measles in Texas. That we're not getting real numbers from Abbott as to what the hell's going on. God knows what's really happening in Texas, but measles is going and growing. I think when that happens, then there'll be a change, but not until.
I'm curious, Steve, about what you're really asking. Are you talking? Who are you talking about? You mean enough people to swing the election?
I'm talking about enough people to recognize that the emperor doesn't have any clothes, and that can hopefully swing elections everywhere. Enough for us to regain the House, at least. The Senate's such a difficult thing, but that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what is it. I don't think all the stuff about it's chaos and he does this and he does that. I think I can't remember which one of you said it. It's when it hits people in the pocketbook, and most specifically, I saw a map in the New York Times yesterday. And it was a map that showed the percentage of people across the country that are on Medicaid. And some of the places, the highest percentage of people that need Medicaid are in Kentucky, Oklahoma. They're living in deep red states. And it just seems to me, you guys kind of said it, when it comes down where you can't get your medication, when it comes down to the things, what these guys believe, I'm convinced, because I believe firmly that they're total racists. What they believe is that everybody on Medicaid lives in Detroit or Chicago or somewhere where there's black people, basically. They don't even realize. I saw Governor Beshear of Kentucky, a Democrat who's won twice or three times, and he was talking about the rural areas where he goes. 80% of the people are getting some kind of Medicaid. So what I'm hopeful is, with all of the nonsense and all of the bullshit, once people start to realize, hey, this is affecting me and my children and my family, then maybe, assuming that the Democrats can present some kind of, whoever the local Democrat is, present something that makes sense other than talking about whether or not transgender people can play basketball. I mean, I think that there's going to be a change in this country, and I think that they're marching towards it because they're not doing anything to change it. All this stuff, when these guys go to their town halls and they hear all this shit from their people, what do? They leave. They don't engage.
Well,
and now they shut down town hall.
And the chairman of the Republican National Committee, Richard Hudson, who's a Republican from North Carolina, congressman, he's actually told Congress people not to hold town halls because they're getting chastised. Barb,
they're filling these town halls with veterans. Veterans' families are freaking out on this. It's the Medicare people. It's the whole. Oh my God, the leopards are eating my face.
Yeah.
And they did not think that was going to happen, and it's happening to them first because Trump does not care about them at all. They've done their part. They voted them in. Go fuck off now. Go die of starvation. The farmers we don't care. We're going to let the crops rot in those things rather than send them off to countries where they need food. Oof.
And contrary, Barb, the only thing. Contrary, Barb, to what Trump was alleging, dead people don't vote. Bill.
Yeah, first of all, Steve, I think that was the best question that's been asked on this show in a long, long time. It's a great question. And while I hope that you're all right, that this Trump will force these people to look someplace else, I don't think it's enough right now. I think the last election shows that. I think that they've got to have some place to turn. And right now, most of these people don't believe it's the Democratic Party. I think I want to pick up on what Barb has said a number of times on the show in the past, that the Democratic Party has got to go out and talk to these people directly, not with an anti-Trump message, but with a more "this is what we can do" message. I think Alyssa Slotkin, I know that it'll probably come up later, but I think Alyssa Slotkin's response, I was talking to somebody on her team and I said, why the hell is she doing this? This has never worked for anybody. But I thought she did a magnificent job, and I've heard nobody really say anything negative about it. She is. Oh, you do have something to say.
I have. I heard a lot of negative stuff about that, but go ahead.
But I thought, look, I think that she does a masterful job of talking to people that most Democrats don't talk to. I think she does it by going out there. I think both of our senators actually are pretty good at that. That they travel to places that most Democrats don't travel to. They sit and talk with people that most Democrats don't talk to. And unless we do that, and look, we've got a couple of these guys making comments on the show today. They're never going to leave Trump, not just because they agree with him, but because they don't think that the Democrats are a place they could possibly turn. And so if we don't talk to them, we're going to have this problem. I'm glad I'm not a politician anymore. I couldn't talk to some of these people. I tell you, I'm so soured on it.
You go up the I-75 corridor, up past Flint, Saginaw, Bay City, places that were stalwart blue. It's not there anymore. It's just vanished.
Well, the economy's.
As I say, the Republicans have done such a good job at weaponizing terms that we have seen as positive, like being liberal. And they've turned that into, a really toxic, bad thing, being woke, which was supposed to be a positive thing. And they've turned it into really weaponize these things very effectively. The Republicans are just better at playing dirty. And I don't know that ignoring it is the best response.
Yeah.
Steve.
So I know what Nancy's saying because I saw it as well. Plenty of the so-called progressives bitched about her response, blah, blah, blah. Fine. But in this state, this election, where Trump won the state, she won the state. When she chose to make that speech in Wyandotte, I liked what she said. This is a town that Trump won in terms of the votes, but she won it as well. So what Bill is saying is, I agree with him 5,000%. I don't believe in it for a minute. When Gary Peters went up to West Branch or to wherever, going Gladwin or whatever, he was able to talk to people. They're not. I mean, sometimes I get the feeling that the lefties think that everybody that lives north of Flint is somehow just a hooligan or something. There's plenty of regular people that live up there. But if you don't ever talk to them, you won't know. So when Alyssa, whether you like the exact speech or you like the way she delivered it, she was talking to the people that we need to talk to, the things that Bill is saying. You can't sit there and talk to college professors and people who to the left of whoever. Oh yeah, there's a Saeed. He hates that. Oh my God, college professors. But I mean, you have to talk to regular people, and she has the ability to do it.
You're right, Steve. I guess what I'm really saying is I don't have the stomach for it. I'm glad somebody does. But can I just point? I'm going to put this comment up for a minute here. I don't want to watch a man in a wig punching a woman. I don't want to watch a man in a wig punching a woman either. Does anybody else want to join me in that? I don't want to see a man in a wig punching a woman. When has a man in a wig punched a woman in some sort of sanctioned event? Okay. I mean, what are we talking about here? This is a perfect example of what we're up against. They have convinced Marlon Holt here that Democrats want to see men in a wig punching a woman, and it's simply not true. I mean, I think you've probably seen some of the data on this. You know, this whole transgender ban in high school sports. I think there are something like two trans athletes in the whole state of Michigan that are trying to compete in high school sports, and for all we know, they might be competing on the fucking chess club. I don't know. I mean, it's just. Anyway.
By the way, no, chess is actually an international sport where you can actually have the genders play each other.
Yes, I know. I'm aware of that. Right.
Okay, Alan.
Alyssa Slotkin addressed this issue about change, and about cutting costs and all that kind of stuff. And she's basically like, yeah, we're all for cutting costs, but we're not for doing it recklessly. And the Republicans have tried to couch it that, the Democrats don't want to save money, therefore corruption, therefore fraud, when the Democrats just want to do it in an orderly, more thoughtful way, and the most reckless way that this guy is doing things. It's just
and if I could quote Steve Fishman, who has said this multiple times in the past, Elon Musk is working for a criminal. Okay, Donald Trump is a criminal, and he thinks like a criminal. Donald Trump doesn't want to cut waste. Donald Trump wants to steal with both hands for as long as he can get away with it, and that's the way he thinks, and that's why he doesn't give a shit what Elon Musk is up to.
Right.
That was very good.
Barb, go ahead.
What I objected to in Alyssa Slotkin's speech was the centrist tone. She, it was like, we don't want to do this, and she's looking right in the camera, and she's straying away from the crux of the problem, and that is what I wanted her to face. And I guess I have low expectations for Democrats, because I think I think that you're right about a lot of what you were saying, Steve. Is you can't send people up to northern Michigan that have no idea of what their life is. You can't send, and I'm going to get real classist here. You can't send white collar people up into blue collar town. People moved up north because they wanted to get away from all that down here, but now they're being left alone. It's not stupid. The Dems don't have to go stupid. But Dems have to talk to the people that they're talking to. They have to talk to people, and I will, Nancy, I really will. But I mean, it's as if you either are going to send people that cannot speak to a retired auto worker that saw his job go to Mexico.
Well, that's what I want to say. Let me just those up north towns that used to be dependably blue. They had a factory, or they had a couple of job fountains up there. Okay. A friend of mine wrote a big project about 20 some years ago for the Detroit News they ended up calling it Driven Abroad. And what he did is he looked for a widget factory. These are the places that used to be in these up north towns because they didn't have to pay as much as they would downstate. These were high touch, but low skill jobs. And what he was looking at was something called a wire harness, which is this piece of flexible plastic that's stapled to the inside of your engine compartment, and it carries the wires, here and there in the engine. This was the kind of thing that could be done by a high school graduate. You didn't have to have any technical knowledge at all. And by and large, it was done in these up north towns. And people liked that. I mean, they liked that they didn't just live up north to get away from Detroit. They lived up north because they liked the deer, they liked the nature, they liked to go kayaking, all this, whatever. And one by one, those plants were closed. And he traced one that went from the thumb to Mexico to somewhere else in Central America, then across the Pacific to China. And then eventually even China got to be, too expensive for them. And they ended up in like Vietnam or someplace like that. And you can't, but you have to let these people understand who pushed these economic policies that made this happen. The Republican Party, the profit uber alles people. That's how that happened.
Hey, Alan, can we let's go to a quick commercial. Plus, I need to process the difference between being Saeed and a Saeed. But anyway, go for it.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Well, Nancy, on this topic of the economics and jobs moving, we also have tariffs. And it seems as though we're all over the place with tariffs. The tariffs are on, the tariffs are off. An alleged negotiation tool. It seems like we've alienated everybody. Bill, why don't you come on in on that?
Yeah, look, I mean, actually, it's part of what I wanted to raise. First, though, I want to deal with what Nancy said and with what Barb said. And I'm going to take off my own personal political views and put on my strategic hat for a moment. Alyssa Slotkin talked like a centrist because she is a centrist. And you know what? It's okay that she's a centrist. She's not an OCA. She's never going to join the squad. That's not who she is. And there's room for her in the Democratic Party. And the fact of the matter is that, we can make that work. In terms of going and having these, Nancy, I liked it, the relatively sophisticated perspective on what happened to jobs up north. You would have lost about 80% of those people in about 30 seconds. And that's why I think you've got to talk to them.
That's why I stay downstate with my people, but that's okay.
I'm with you, Ann. I used to be a lot better at being patient. When I walked for Obama, I could have conversations with people like this and do it calmly and slowly. I'm no good at it anymore.
Yeah.
But I think you've got to talk to them about things like tariffs. We ought to do something in terms of other people having tariffs, but let me tell you what it's going to mean to you to put them on. It is putting a 25% tax on you, not on anybody else. And you've got to make it clear, simple about their pocketbook in ways that they understand. And even then, I mean, I can't remember if I was watching 7 or 4 or 2, one of the local news stations went out and interviewed local people about the impact of tariffs. And I couldn't believe how many of them said, no, if Trump wants it, then it'll ultimately work. We may have to suffer for a while, but it will ultimately work.
He's a brilliant businessman. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah. Anybody who can lose money with a casino has got to be a brilliant businessman. Jesus.
New Jersey.
But Bill, for those of us who are not Calvinists and into severe suffering, I mean, this is just really, really dangerous. I mean, the idea of cutting or abolishing the Department of Education, which, although I don't think he can abolish the whole department, but they can certainly go ahead and, with executive orders in particular, create some real curtailments on policies that benefit millions of kids.
You can put McMahon in charge of the department. That should destroy it all by itself. And I'm sorry, I've got to comment on this. I don't know what Mr. Holt's obsession with transgender. I don't know what. Let me finish. Okay. I don't know what his obsession with this is. I don't understand what Trump's obsession with this is. But for God's sakes, these people have enough difficulty functioning in this society. We are cruel to them, and you don't need to jump on. I don't know what your issue is, but lay off these people.
When did we have a natural woman beaten down by a natural man in? I mean, is she talking about the Olympics? Not getting into the. I think
the volleyball thing that Trump was talking about is.
I know we all look alike, Nancy, but she wasn't Turkish; she was Tunisian. Damn it!
Thank you. Okay. I knew it.
But this is a big talking point. That's one of the big talking points.
Or was it
part
Algeria?
Of ideology.
But I mean, but at the same time, you have who a lot of people think is a frontline contender for the presidency on the Democratic ticket next time, Governor of California Gavin Newsom, who came out with a statement walking back the conventional Democratic view on the trans issue. So are people just simply tacking to the center as a strategic ploy here?
It's always a problem.
I think Newsom. I think everybody. I mean, the Dems picked Alyssa Slotkin because she's a centrist. I thought, look, she could be more liberal in her speech or whatever, but I thought her speech was pretty good. I think she delivered. She was basically saying, yes, we want savings, but we want to do it thoughtfully, not recklessly like this. We want, Medicare, Medicaid to be protected. All that.
We could also raise taxes. Just a thought, just a thought. So
look, the answer is yes. Saeed is absolutely right, and it's always a problem that when leaders try to figure out where people are going and try to jump in front of it rather than really lead. I like Gretch. I think she's doing a great job. But if you listen to her State of the State speech, she appealed to these white boys, who, look at how much these poor single white men are struggling. I think it is an issue. I think it was something legitimately that should have been addressed, but that was not something that had been in her speech in the last 7 or 6 years. And it's been an issue for 6 years. So I think we need leaders who will lead, who will get out in front and say, look, we want to do this for these reasons because it's right, because it's good for democracy, whatever. Instead of people try to figure out, okay, what's going to get me elected? I think that's really contributed to the problem that we're in right now.
So given the rhetoric that comes out of the Oval Office these days, President Trump has said that if Hamas doesn't release all the hostages in Gaza, the Israeli hostages, that there will be hell to pay. And yet at the same time, word comes that the Trump administration has been secretly negotiating with Hamas. And a further allegation that news of this was leaked by the Israeli government, who was actually not apprised or notified of said secret negotiations before, and they're looking to then sabotage whatever negotiations are happening. All of this while the Israeli government has also cut off all humanitarian aid to Gaza. Does anyone know when we're going to be able to buy a condo in the Riviera of the Middle East? Or is this just not happening?
Yeah.
Steve.
I think that his involvement in anything in the Middle East, but particularly anything having to do with Gaza or with the Israelis and the Hamasniks, if anything shows the ignorance, he's threatening. What exactly is he threatening him with? That's what I'd like to know. Either you'll do this or what?
Yeah.
Or I'm going to give, here's the rest of his sentence, Steve, or I'm going to give Israel everything they need to do to finish the job.
Right, except
of course.
Haven't they been using everything they need for a year now?
And by the way, let's put this in context. Let's put this in context. It comes at the exact same time that Israel has cut off all humanitarian aid to Gaza. Why? This is their statement. He said that he did it to put pressure on Hamas to acquiesce in these negotiations and to release the hostages. Oh, that's worked in the past. Hamas is really worried about the 2 million Palestinians. We wouldn't be in this spot if that were true. And I'm sorry, I don't believe for a moment that Israel cutting off aid to humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip and Trump's actions and his words in these negotiations aren't coordinated. I mean, he and Bibi are in lockstep. We're going to destroy 2 million people's lives. We're going to complete that destruction. And it doesn't put any pressure on Hamas because Hamas doesn't give a shit about those 2 million people. They've already demonstrated that.
Well,
And for God's sakes, neither do we. Let's make it real clear. This is where America stands. We don't give a shit about 2 million innocent Palestinians. We're going to let them die.
We don't give a shit
Well,
about
I
the Ukrainians either.
I think beyond that, Bill, I mean, it seems as though it's a referendum on America's attitude toward international law and the entire rule of order system, because to allow allies to flout it seems to then embolden the U.S. to say, well, we're going to flout it as well. When in a multipolar world, I don't know for how much longer that can really happen. Alan.
As I say, I mean, the U.S.'s word is becoming less and less reliable. And I mean, look, they put together an agreement in 3 phases or whatever. And now, Israel and the U.S. says, let's reopen up phase 1. Let's load up more. It's not going to work. I mean, and they're saying, well, okay, we're going to cut off. How long did they cut off aid before? And it wasn't effective. And Hamas has got the hostages there, which should be released. I mean, that should be at this point a top priority. But also, Israel doesn't want to live next door to Hamas, a Hamas ruled land, and so it's headed toward, like Trump says, oh, you're going to have hell to pay. Well, look at the Gaza. They paid hell.
How much are you going to pay? There's something beyond hell.
I think now it seems as though the Israeli government doesn't want to live next to a Palestinian Authority governed West Bank either. So it looks like the lines are moving. Well, I'm going to play around the horn here. So real quick, especially from our attorneys, both James and Jennifer Crumbley, the parents of Ethan Crumbley, the Oxford shooter, have both filed cases. In the case of James Crumbley, to have his sentence, I believe, reduced, and in the case of Jennifer Crumbley, to claim that the prosecutor made some egregious mistakes and therefore the case should get thrown out. Any prospect on either of these being successful?
Stu, you're the criminal guy.
Well, Michael Desi is an excellent, I've said this before, he's an excellent appellate lawyer, and both of the issues that he's raising are interesting. The most interesting is the first one, which I think we've talked about before. The 2 witnesses had meetings with the prosecutors where they talked pursuant to what are called Castigar agreements. Castigar is an agreement that says that if a person is talking to the government, they can't use anything that the person says during those interviews as long as everything they say is true. Okay? In every single case ever, and I've been doing this over 50 years, if there's a witness in a case that has been involved in a discussion where an interview report is produced, where there's a Castigar agreement, that gets turned over to the defense every time. And the defense can do with it whatever it is that they think they can do with it. For whatever reason in this case, they didn't turn over those 2 reports. And I have no idea why they didn't do it. I think it was ridiculous. But whether standing alone, that means you're going to get a new trial, the odds are you're not, because they really can't show any prejudice to it. It was true that neither of them were promised anything. That's true. That's what they testified to. And it is true that they told the truth, at least their version of the truth, so that they could not use that agreement the statement against them. The prosecutor couldn't use it against them. There was no reason not to turn it over, but I don't think that standing alone is going to make for a reversal, although, well, it's never going to happen in front of this trial judge because she's not going to do anything. But you never know. Once it gets to the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court, who knows? The second thing about hiring the PR firm, I never heard of anything like that ever in my entire career. And for the life of me, I don't understand how that isn't something that people need to be concerned about. Because quite frankly, if you think about it, ask any judge or ask any trial lawyer, one of the first questions that a group of jurors is asked is, do you know anything? Have you heard anything about this case outside this courtroom? And in a case like that, of course, a lot of people have heard things. And what did they do? At least what is Michael Desi saying? He's saying that they put stuff out into the public eye, some things that were not necessarily admissible in court, that wasn't going to be evidence, and they were all damaging things to the parents. And that is, to me, something that needs to be looked at. Again, do I think that's going to cause this judge to get rid of the case? No. But I think it's going to be interesting on appeal because of the combination of those 2 things. You withheld something you absolutely should have turned over. There's no judge except for this trial judge. In the Court of Appeals, they're all going to say that it could have been turned over. And then this business with the PR, I don't know. If we did it, well, I can tell you something. When I represented Ben Johnson, when Feiger and Ben were tried in federal court, Judge Borman was the judge, and Jeffrey decided, he never told me this, but he was having advertisements that were talking about really our case more than they were about come to see me for plaintiff's work. And the government filed a motion, and Judge Borman ordered him to get rid of the billboards, to get rid of those advertisements, because it was clear, at least in the judge's view, he was trying to influence prospective jurors. This is exactly the same thing as far as I'm concerned. So
what about the comment?
Worse because it's the people. Worse because it's the prosecutors.
Right, absolutely. It's the prosecutors, and prosecutors have more of a duty. That's why they have to turn things over, because they're the prosecutors. The defense can interview 500 witnesses. They don't have to turn anything over because they're defending. But the prosecutors.
What about the comment that people feel as though both the Crumbleys had ineffective counsel? Would that be a defense that can at this point be raised, or is it too late? Yep, Bill.
Oh no, it absolutely can be raised on appeal. I mean, that's something that gets raised all the time.
Not very successfully, by the way. The standard is so low. This was my pet project when I was in law school. I wrote a paper on ineffective assistance of counsel for a guy who became federal judge, who Steve knew well, Art Tarnow. Ineffective assistance of counsel is a violation of the Sixth Amendment. It should be able to be raised. I think that there are some issues here about that, but the standard of ineffective assistance of counsel for ineffective assistance of counsel is so low that I doubt that it's going to be met here. I do want to say something about Desi. I don't know him. We've been trading phone calls on a related issue. I will tell you, I love this guy because I love an attorney who isn't worried about how his conduct is going to impact his next case, but just comes right out and says, in this case, these clients were not treated appropriately, and I'm not going to hide it, and I'm not going to hide my disdain for what happened. And he came right out with it and fronted it, and the guy ought to be commended. He ought to have an award made in his name for having the kind of guts and courage to do the right thing. I may not like the Crumbleys. I don't like a lot of what happened in Oxford, but he's doing a great job for these clients and should be commended for it.
Allan?
I see the Oakland County prosecutor, since this, has actually hired a media person to act full-time on staff to deal with questions. But the question becomes, what was the PR firm doing? Were they pushing CNN appearances, and were they pushing out I'd be curious exactly how much they were pushing out propaganda or whatever about the case, as opposed to a PR person, the PIO person who you might call to say, hey, I have a clarification. Was this, a legal question or something about the case or whatever, for some clarification?
But Allan, ask yourself, why don't we know this?
Yeah.
Why don't we know it? And it's because the FOIAs are ineffective here, because it's ongoing litigation, and that's what they got to hide behind.
Steve, you had your hand up.
I was going to say that there's a big difference between, the U.S. Attorney's Office has a person that communicates with the press, and the press releases and things of that nature. I don't think Michael is saying anything like that in this case. I think he's saying, and all I can go by is what I read. I have talked to him a little bit about the case, but not about this portion of it. But I think what he's saying is that they intentionally put out material, kind of like what Jeffrey was doing with his billboard. They're putting out material that's damaging to the defense, and they're doing it under the guise of they're getting away with it, even though they might not even have any evidence that could support some of that stuff. They created an atmosphere, and it didn't take much to do it because the disgustingness of what happened. I mean, the tragedy of Oxford. But they created an atmosphere. Prospective jurors are looking at the parents when they sit down like, yeah, I know about these guys, and that's not supposed to be that way.
I think he's going, if I can, I think he's going one step further, and I think he may well be right, by the way. I think that one of the things he's talking about is that these secret conversations that they were having with the school witnesses and the PR work were not unrelated. And so there was a lot of pushback. Look, as a guy who was involved and who's handled a lot of cases involving misconduct by school administrators, the fact that the prosecutor's department, prosecutors never really looked at the school personnel in connection with this case troubles me a lot. And I think that the prosecutors wanted to get ahead of it, and I would bet a few dollars on the fact that the PR firm, part of their work was intended to make sure that people didn't think that the teachers could have any criminal liability here. And if the parents could, some of these administrators and teachers could have also. It's my view. And I think that's what Desi's saying.
All right. Alan, let's go to the last segment.
All righty.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
All right, we are at that time of the show. And Steve, I'm mindful of time here, so why don't you go first?
Well, first thing, I have the opposite of a Schmuck of the Week. I have a hero of the week, and that guy is Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario. I saw him on my girlfriend's show, on Nicole Wallace's show, and I was so impressed with the way he talked. He was on for about 10 minutes, and he talked about how he loved Americans. Canadians and Americans love each other. And he basically said, but there's one American who we don't love. And he started talking about the things that they were going to do in retaliation. And he just was so well prepared. And it was just great listening to a politician still. He's a politician. Actually talk tachlis, as we say in Yiddish. Actually tell the truth about something. My Schmuck of the Week is easy. Lindsey Graham. But 10 days ago, he was nominating Zelensky for a Congressional Medal of Honor. And as soon as Trump said Zelensky's an asshole, now he's an asshole. So Lindsey Graham, as usual, since he lost his balls a long time ago, obviously, and he hasn't found them since then, that's for sure. So he's my Schmuck of the Week. And that was an easy one.
I hope I live long enough to see whatever they have on Lindsey Graham that makes him behave this way, because it's so baffling. But
I think Steve, when it comes to that particular issue, there's a bunch of Ken dolls saying "Hold my beer." Barb.
Michigan Republican Speaker Matt Hall, who led the charge against Michigan school children. They have cut $5 billion from classrooms, $1 billion from at-risk student education to funds transportation, pre-K, higher education, and community college. They are keeping $1.75 in federal school funds away from the school district, and they have cut all of the funding for school meals. Now, a Republican doesn't hate anything as much as a child out of the womb. Mm-hmm. Inside, they'll stand in line, they'll picket, they'll do whatever they can out. They'll get them little freeloaders out of their faces, keep them stupid, keep them hungry. It makes me sick. And he sits with his big, fat, dumb, smug fucking face. And
but remember, when we dismantle the Department of Education at the federal level, all that money is going to come showering down like a sweet, sweet rain. So
that's why they're already going here. Let me get this so we
can cuts. It's coming in tax cuts. That's right.
And I mean, we can take right now. We can make a big giant wheel of schmuck and just spin it and hit it anywhere. But the Michigan Republicans never fucking let me down. So Matt Hall, you are my schmuck.
There you go, Joel.
One, I saw what what Ford did, and it reminded me that the Canadians, it's like a hockey game. The guy says, "You want to dance? Let's dance." Yeah. Drop the gloves, we're ready to go. I love the fact he's going to keep his end of the tariffs going. He's not going to forgive anything. That's classic Canadian. I love it. It's like in the corner. I love it. So I was very, very impressed. My schmuck of the week is going to be a Michigan rep, Josh Schreiber. Who just posed a bill to ban porn, and I have very few hobbies. Okay, very few hobbies. Very few hobbies I'm good at, and that I really practice. And I don't know my hobby. Okay, I'm not the only one. So
You'll be back to the Sears,
Joel.
the Sears underwear ads. Sorry.
Oh no, Joe, that's never going to do it again. Let's be honest. I am desensitized. The things I have seen, no one should see. It's like, okay, that's cool. And what I've noticed is Japanese.
I get a lot of
always happy. They're always laughing, no matter what's going on. The Japanese seem to be thrilled. So.
And see, Joel here because of the tariffs. I thought you said that he banned corn. But okay.
I get a lot of lingerie ads. I'm going to start forwarding.
Yeah, we got to send them the Frontline magazine, like when we were kids.
Yeah.
I might have some old National Geographics, Joel. Nancy.
Oh, okay. Well, I learned last week that apparently we're allowed to have multiple schmucks, and I don't really have multiple schmucks, so I'm not going to go into all of these. A rare double banger week after week would be Ed Martin, who I believe is still the acting U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, who sent off this ridiculous letter to the Dean of the Georgetown University Law School, claiming that we understand you're still doing DEI. This is unacceptable. And then he closed with a threat that no graduate of Georgetown University would be hired for any federal position that he had any say in, which probably made thousands of Cooley Law graduates very happy. I think that Ed Martin is probably my main schmuck, but I also have to throw out nominations for Bobby Kennedy, who I understand is approvingly treating measles cases in Texas with cod liver oil because it has a lot of vitamin A, and apparently he believes vitamin A is effective against measles. And also talking about women that don't have ovaries, these women in the House of Representatives who wore pink to the president's joint address to Congress, and boy, I bet he really felt bad about that. Oh, you're wearing pink. It's like, talk about the sartorial equivalent of a strongly worded op-ed in the New York Times. I mean, that's what that was. So
we know that cod liver oil,
like you said,
cod liver oil is actually good for diaper rash. So
okay. We have a lot of babies in high office, so maybe he can use that.
Bill.
Well, I have a couple. First of all, in this era of alleged free speech, I think Richard Grenell, who is the new president of the Kennedy Center, and Donald Trump together certainly deserve Schmuck of the Week. They're going after Lin-Manuel Miranda and for canceling Hamilton, while at the same time saying woke is dead. We're not going to allow any more of these woke. And what was it? He talked about Trump decided to take over the Kennedy Center to stop these drag queen shows.
Degenerate, yeah.
I mean, this notion that there was something wrong with the Kennedy Center and that they had to take it over to make sure that it became a more American system is just simply disgusting. And for that reason, they're Schmuck of the Weeks. But I do want to give an honorable mention to Lance Gooden, Republican of Democrat, who leaned over, another great free speech supporter, and grabbed the sign that Representative Stansbury, Democrat from New Mexico, was holding that says, "This is not normal." Trump walked by, she was holding the sign, she wasn't loud, she didn't do anything wrong. He reached over and grabbed the sign and pulled it out. Nobody would have known it except C-SPAN happened to catch it. I
love C-SPAN.
Unreal.
And he's disgusting, and Trump supporting it and laughing about it is also disgusting.
Yep.
So Joel, one suggestion for you: if that ban goes through, C-SPAN.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
just
as
show
everything.
Just as an alternative.
That's what's going.
See if you can tell the difference, Alan.
I'm gonna have to watch Steve's girlfriend actually, because she is. Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to go FBI Director Kash Patel, who is also acting ATF Director for the moment, who wants to live part-time in Las Vegas. And I mean, this is a full-time job, and you not only have one full-time job, you have two full-time jobs, and he wants to hang out in Vegas and and he'll make a phone call, I'm sure, and stuff like that. I find that outrageous. The other thing is, I don't know that I can really pin it on the Supreme Court justices for being schmucks of the week, but them schmoozing with Trump was such a troubling op to me to see, and supposedly Trump thanked John Roberts,
Chief Justice Roberts,
and I find that just so frightening. So.
But you know what? He released an opinion the next morning at 8:00 in the morning, clearly sitting on it, that went against Trump in a very big way. We didn't get a chance to talk about it on the show. I have a little bit of hope.
Excuse me.
Roberts and
Amy Bear Cohen stood up. She's disgusted by him.
Yep.
If you could take a look at his face.
And you know what? Watch the video. He snubbed her at the speech. He walked right by her and shook the hands of the male justices. Amazing.
And the maggots are going after her full steam.
That's right, Barb.
Yeah,
I
Joel,
like
you
to
can
think that she caught a whiff of him because they say that's the untold story about Trump, that he also smells bad, but so maybe that's what it was.
Joel, you can catch that on C-SPAN, not on HBO After Dark.
Thank you. Let me add that to my.
All right.
Must watch C-SPAN.
So I've got two. One real quick. The Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, who said Americans raise your own chickens as a way to deal with eggs. But my real schmuck is New York Post columnist and editor of Commentary Magazine, John Podhoretz, who began Oscar Sunday evening tweeting about his love for the Oscar shows. Quote, "So far, this is the best Oscars I think I've ever seen, and I've been watching since 1971, end quote. And then 45 minutes later saying, quote, "Fuck you, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, Hollywood filth. What changed? Well, the Oscar to Best Documentary Long-Term went to the Israeli-Palestinian film No Other Land, which was a very poignant moment where you had an Israeli and a Palestinian both get up there and give really a heartfelt acceptance speech, calling for, in very heretical terms, peace and understanding across ethnic and religious lines. This apparently was enough to discombobulate Mr. Podhoretz.
I thought together both the Israeli and the Palestinian stuff was well done.
Yeah, it was just really a wonderful part of that. And Conan did a pretty good job as host. Anyways, thank you all for another great talk about what's been happening all week in the news. Thank you, Bill Seikaly. Thank you, Joel Sklar. Thank you, Steve Fishman. Thank you, Barb Ingalls. Thank you, Nancy Derringer. And of course, with the last word, as always, and thank you, Allan Lengel.
Drive home safely.
Have a great week, everybody. And don't forget to